chapter 2, which is titled Contents of the Gita Summarized. And we'll be reading from text 61. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yas yendriyani tasya pragya pratishtata. So, translation. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. Purport. So this is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, speaking to his devotee Arjuna, by the way. Purport. That the highest conception of yoga perfection is Krishna consciousness is clearly explained in this verse. And unless one is Krishna conscious, it is not at all possible to control the senses. As cited above, the great sage Dasa Muni picked a quarrel with Maharaj Ambarish, and Dasa Muni unnecessarily could not check his senses. On the other hand, the king, although not as powerful as a yogi as the sage, but a devotee of the Lord, silently tolerated all the sage's injustices and thereby emerged victorious. The king was able to control his senses because of the following qualifications as mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Savaya Mana Krishna Padar Ravindayo. So King Ambarish, these are his qualifications. King Ambarish fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, engaged his words in describing the abode of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the body of the devotee, his nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaves offered to him, his legs in traveling to the holy place where his temple is situated, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. And all these qualifications made him fit to become a Matpara devotee of the Lord. And then Srila Prabhupada explains Matpara. The word Matpara is most significant in this connection. How one can become a Matpara is described in the life of Maharaj Ambarish. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, a great scholar and teacher in the line, remarks, the senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna. Also, the example of fire is sometimes given. As a blazing fire burns everything within a room, Lord Vishnu, situated in the heart of the yogi, burns up all kinds of impurities. The Yoga Sutra also prescribes meditation on Vishnu and not meditation on the void. The so-called yogis who meditate on something which is not on the Vishnu platform simply waste their time in a vain search after some phantasmagoria. We have to be Krishna conscious, devoted to the personality of Godhead. This is the aim of real yoga. Om Ganativanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuvan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Ukam Katitvachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yukitamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dintaranam Vanchakavdribhishcha Kripasindhibhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so translation one more time. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. So Bhagavad Gita explains how we, as living entities, we're persons. We're individual persons. We were persons in the past, we're persons now, and we'll be persons in the future. Individual persons. And how God is also a person, but the supreme person. And specifically, it's described that there's three aspects to the absolute truth. It's described in Bhagavat Purana, a book that follows this book, say the next book after this book. Says that there's the Brahman effulgence, this impersonal effulgence coming from Krishna. And the next aspect is Krishna within everyone's heart. So there's God, he's situated within everyone's heart, and he's guiding us according to our particular desires and trying to encourage us in certain ways, spiritual ways. Krishna, the person, Bhagavan, who said to have 6 opulences. So the opulences are wealth. What are the other ones? Does anyone remember? Okay, renunciation, strength, beauty. What is it? Fame, okay. What else? Knowledge, yeah. So he has all of these things, but in full. Therefore, he's considered to be all attractive. Krishna means one who's all attractive. And we see that if anyone has these qualities, they're beautiful or they're strong, people tend to be attracted. Like there's guys a book, what is it, World Guinness book, with his teeth. I don't know what do they attach it to a rope and back the train. Very strong guy. That's not normal. I'm not sure how you train for such a thing, but yeah, practice. People are attracted. So Krishna, he has all of these in full. Beauty, most beautiful, strong, wealthy, yeah, all this in full. And the real happiness of the living entity, or the real happiness that we are meant for, is the happiness that comes in connection with him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the soul connecting with the Supreme Soul. That's the real happiness that everyone's looking for, whether they know it or not. And that happiness comes through the process of linking ourselves with Krishna through devotional service, like a relationship based on service, which we'll get into soon. Now, the problem comes in material existence is that there's a problem of suffering. A lot of spiritual traditions talk about this. You have the Buddhists, right? They say that the whole existence is suffering. That's one of their truths, right? Whole existence is suffering. And that this suffering, they say, comes from us desiring or craving, or our cravings. This is what the suffering comes from. And the way to end that is to kill desire, just to get rid of it somehow or other. So what do we think about that? Yes, material existence, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the material world as a place of suffering. And we do accept that it is due to desires, but it is not just any desire, but it's specifically materialistic desires. That's what causes the suffering. But if one is able to desire spiritually, learn how to desire spiritually, it is possible to desire spiritually in this world, then material existence is no longer a place full of suffering. But it's actually by one particular person, Prabodhananda Saraswati, a great teacher in the tradition. He says, Vishram Purna Sukhayate, says that a person who's able to desire spiritually or see things, develop the spiritual vision or Krishna consciousness, Vishram Purna Sukhayate, what does that mean? It means that the whole universe, wherever they look, is full of happiness, not suffering. Yeah, so the idea is that we to try to develop that the spiritual desires. But a problem comes in that you could say there's like the world of the senses, sense enjoyment. The senses have urges. Maybe, anyways, maybe noticed looking around. That's the whole principle of consumerism, right? They try to encourage people to, what do they call that, like impulse buying? Apparently they've done studies and men are more into that. Interesting enough. But there's the world of the senses, and then people think, okay, there's this material world and the world of the senses, and then there is the world of transcendence. It's just like they're completely separate. But it presents a problem because we're in this world. We have senses, and they have desires. The senses have urges. So how are we supposed to cross the bridge from this world of sense enjoyment, cross the bridge to the world of transcendence? That's the question. And that is described here in this particular purport, that Ambarish Maharaj, a great devotee, he would engage all of his senses in Krishna's service. He would engage his eyes in seeing the beautiful forms of Krishna. He would engage his ears in hearing about Krishna or Kirtan. He would engage his hands. In this way, he would engage all of his senses. So for him, Ambarish Maharaj and persons like that who learn how to engage their senses in Krishna consciousness, the senses are no longer a problem or there's no risk of the senses degrading them, such persons, because they've learned how to engage them. And the main way in this particular age in which we engage our senses is by, we engage our tongue. Everybody has a tongue. So we engage our tongue in two ways: by chanting Hare Krishna, the names of Krishna, and by taking prasadam, our food offered to Krishna. And this particular process is the process. The verse goes, Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Gram Indriyai Sevan Mukhehi Jivadao Swayameva Spiratada. That the material senses engaged in the material world, sense enjoyment, the world of the senses, it cannot perceive transcendence. Our senses cannot perceive transcendence, cannot perceive Krishna. But by engaging the senses and engaging the tongue specifically and chanting Hare Krishna, the names of Krishna, and taking food that has been offered to Krishna, what happens? our senses become purified or spiritualized. And then Krishna reveals himself. The Supreme Personality of Godhead reveals himself. So that's the main process for this age that we're in, age of Kali, the main process for God realization. Does anybody have any question? Yes, sir.
So, like, there's evidence of people, Buddhists, becoming enlightened through Buddhism. Are you? What's your claim with?
What's my qualm with Buddhism?
Well, no. What's your claim? What's this religion called? Just Hare Krishna?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different terms, but yeah, we're known as the Hare Krishna movement.
Okay, the Hare Krishna movement. What's your claim with the Hare Krishna movement? That it's the best way to enlightenment, or it's the only way to enlightenment?
Wow, I want to start getting into this conversation. Well, you know, all religions think they're the best, right? Just joking, but there's a joke about that, but it's quite a long joke, and I mean, it's long in the sense that it has a lot of parts to it. It's short, but it has a lot of parts to it. So I haven't memorized it. Of course, I could look it up, but anyways, we could tell it later. But it's kind of making fun of the general sectarianism of religion. How if you just have a slight difference, then yeah, then you're like enemies, making fun of religious people. It's said to be one of the most funny religious jokes out there. It's the guy's on a bridge. He's about to jump. And then, anyways. So, but yeah, we're not like when Srila Prabhupada was in Iran, when he was in Tehran. It's a Muslim country. So he was there and he was hearing the temples, the mosques, saying their prayers early in the morning. And at that particular point, one devotee was there with our teacher, Srila Prabhupada. And then the teacher said, or the devotee said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if they chanted Hare Krishna?" And then Prabhupada made an interesting statement. He said, "Why are you trying to make me sectarian?" In other words, he appreciated that they were chanting in their own way or praying in their own way. And when meeting with Christians, for example, because Srila Prabhupada met with a number of Christians, he would encourage them in two ways. He wouldn't say, give up your religion and join us, but he would say that you should be vegetarian. And he would say, you should chant the names of God in your own name of God. So, yeah, but for someone who's a seeker and they're not committed to a particular path, a lot of people like that. But for someone who's a seeker, the question is, okay, what's the most comprehensive, just objectively speaking? Which books answer the most questions? What gives the best results? So for individuals, they have to go on that journey. When I was 16, I got one of Srila Prabhupada's books called The Perfection of Yoga. It's a small book based on the Bhagavad Gita. And yeah, I was very impressed by that book. And eventually I visited the San Diego Temple and joined the Hare Krishna movement. But it's not that I just signed up. I didn't sign up quickly. I was checking out other places. I was going to this church, this Buddhist place. I was going around and searching. I was asking questions, like a compare and contrast. Saturday morning, I would go to Seventh-day Adventist church and hear what they have to say and talk with the people and hear the sermon. I was open. Now I'm not anymore. I'm just joking. Still try to be, but and then I would go to the Hare Krishna temple Sunday night, and I would hear the talks, and I would ask questions, and I would chant, and I would go to a Buddhist place. The next, so I was searching, and from my personal point of view, and after all, that's the only real point of view I could speak from, in a sense. I found that the Hare Krishna movement and the process of Krishna consciousness had a special power to it. There were what I felt and what I experienced, because ultimately, okay, there's philosophy, but then there's like an experience. It's like everybody's after a spiritual experience. So what the experience I had at these other places, there was something there. But when I went to the temple, I felt it was very concentrated spiritual experience. And I thought about that over the years. And one of the reasons I'm convinced it was more of a concentrated experience was that the persons who were communicating Krishna consciousness or teaching it were very sincere and serious practitioners. And they had a lot of power. They're communicating. And also the process is just powerful. So whatever path brings one to the perfectional stage of love, at least love of Krishna, or we say love of God, that's a authentic path. So we're not claiming that we only have the authentic path. Does anybody have any other question or comment? Yes.
I wanted to say, what about Krishna? What about speaking about Krishna and all his pastimes? Is that another way to engage?
Oh yeah, definitely. Krishna, like religion in general, if you look at Buddhism, what does it rest on? One of the things it rests on. It rests on Buddha actually existing and appearing in this world. There's no Buddhism without Buddha. Or Jesus Christ, or Christianity. It rests on Jesus' appearance. So similarly, within this tradition, it rests on the existence of Krishna appearing in this world 5,000 years ago. And there's great detail of Krishna's personality, his form, his activities, his qualities. And some will say, oh, okay, well, I don't believe it. Well, at least give it a chance, give it a try, investigate. That's the point. And that's what Krishna's saying. Krishna doesn't say anywhere in the Bhagavad Gita that it's about belief. You believe in me. He gives reasons why. Logical reasons. Okay, last comment or from our local monk.
Appreciate you a lot.
I appreciate you a lot too.
Yeah, the question that Matthew asked, I was thinking, you mentioned in your class that there's 3 levels of realization: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And at least from what I've gathered, trying to do this in a humble way, is that all the religions, all the different paths, they have different stages of consciousness. It's not such a matter of religion, it's a matter of principle. And this bhakti principle exists within other religions like Christianity. They have devotion, Jews have devotion, but also you see that there's people who just pray for stuff. And I was thinking it's kind of about principle, and I was wondering maybe if you can say something about that. Like we have Bhagavan, which we consider the highest realization, and Buddhists have more of a Brahman realization. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit.
Sorry, the last point you said, elaborate.
Yeah, I said, we kind of understand the Bhagavan position as being very high. And
Yeah.
the Buddhists are more focused on the impersonal aspect. We think of it more in terms of principle, like, some people may be devoted to people may be more devoted to Brahman in any different tradition. So I was wondering if you could maybe elaborate a little bit. And it might.
Yeah. The principles outlined in the Bhagavad Gita and other such books, they stress very much the personal aspect. Some devotees coin Krishna consciousness as radical personalism. And practically, if you look at it, just looking at our life, what is the real happiness of our life, of our lives? The real happiness, most people would admit, and makes a lot of sense, is that when we're relating with each other in a positive, healthy way, on the basis of affection, whether it's a mother to her son or friend to friend, like birthday parties, right? Everybody loves, generally people like birthday parties. And what's the principle behind a birthday party? You get together with people you love, you have a celebration, you're celebrating life, existence. So much of what we do in day-to-day life, it's all about personalism. And this should give us some hints about our spiritual perfection. That it's also personal. There's also personalism. That's the supreme understanding, or the spirit. Ultimate understanding. This personalism. So, all right. So it's 6:30. So the sand in the hourglass is up. So thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. All right.